Pre-orders are doing you more harm than good.
So it's time to stop paying for games before you know enough about them.
Let's talk about it. Tomorrow. Just like fashion, gaming trends are cyclical.
Oh yeah.
And this week we're talking about pre-orders.
Pre-orders.
Why are we doing this? Why?
I mean, like,
why are we doing this to ourselves?
I feel like it's a slight leap, but also not a slight leap, if you know what I'm saying. We're talking about it because, one, it's a perennially relevant like talking point and often a hot button issue. But right now we've had a couple of things happen that, although not directly an A to B, it sparked a conversation between us and we thought, hey, this is something that we could talk about. First thing that happened was Diablo 4's microtransactions were revealed and the prices are beefy, let's say.
Yeah, and what was it, like $20-$30 for it? I mean, they're all cosmetic.
All
so,
cosmetic.
I mean, yeah, none of that pay to win stuff.
Yeah.
God, remember the auction house.
Rest in peace. Rest in piss.
Yeah.
The other thing is Street Fighter 6 on the eve of its launch is getting, or has been updated to get Denuvo. It's anti-tamper and anti-cheat software, and it has been controversial in the past because it's also had like an impact on performance of games, and also it's done a bunch of wacky things to games. So the response to it is almost like knee-jerk. When you see Denuvo appearing, you're like, oh shit, this is about to be awful. So those two things happen, and generally the kind of like what ties them together is the community response is this was unexpected. Gamers and games, they take pre-ordering games for just as a normal day-to-day thing, but we're in a situation where we're doing that not knowing the complete story around games, because if you think about it, in both these scenarios, the marketing leading up to their release never really mentioned either of those two things.
Pre-orders have been tied to video games for a very long time. Back in the day, you had to get your pre-order in either to make sure that the shop was going to have enough copies, gauge interest that way, or if, like me, you had a special shop that would post games out early.
First of all, let's do the usual, like, if you're super into pre-ordering, firstly, who are you? Secondly, fair play, we don't want to yuck your yum, do whatever you want. This is just like our perspective on it. I think the important thing to kind of distinguish is pre-orders have changed in a lot of ways. I remember back in the day, like at least PS2 era, that was like the last time I pre-ordered a game, and I learned my lesson because...
look at me, I haven't pre-ordered a game in 20 years.
Look at me, I'm smart. I mean, like, I was burned hard because that game was a PS2 copy of Devil May Cry 2, which was absolutely brutal for me.
I used to pre-order all the time, like the 360 PS3 years.
In the PS2 era, and even like bleeding into some of the 360 PS3 era, the pre-orders you were doing were retailer side, right? Like, at least for my experiences in London, in England, UK, it was you go to like Game or HMV and you'd be like, they would do the usual, you better pre-order this because it's not going to be in stock, and you'd pay like £5, but that would be subtracted from the cost of the full game, right?
Yeah.
As someone who also worked in retail and was in a game store.
The dark years.
Yeah, the dark years. When they were like, they might not have many of these, that was bullshit. Like the next day, there would be like just boxes and boxes of it. The only situation where saying like, we might not have a lot of these, and it actually happened, was Nintendo games.
I was going to say the Wii.
Yeah, the Wii stuff was...
Wii Fit.
The Wii was difficult to get. Wii Fit was difficult to get.
Ring
Metroid
Fit.
Prime Trilogy was one that was like... when that came in, and we were like told to say like, it might not be a lot of them, I was like, I'm actually going to say this because there's probably not going to be a lot of them. Also, I bought 3 of them. Then in the era that we're talking about, the 360 PS3 era, that's when the publishers and like marketing cottoned onto it and started to make it a part of the process, right?
Well, that's when it got bull.
Yeah.
Mass Effect 2, certainly. Arkham City, every single retailer had a different pre-order bonus. Arkham Cities were particularly egregious.
Yeah. There's that legendary Watch Dogs chart where it's like all the editions and pre-order bonuses, and you had to like cross-reference it, whichever one you wanted.
That was PS4, right? Yeah, because I mean, in the PS4 years, you also had like augment your pre-order and
that
Evolve
was
and everything.
rough with Deus Ex, Evolve. There's the I think the 360 era, PS3 era Mass Mass Effect had all those costumes that were like, one was at Walmart, one was at Best Buy, one was at...
Wasn't one like Dr. Pepper?
Since then, like, I think pre-orders have changed a little bit. They were still very much like publisher and marketing initiatives. And now retailers also benefit from it to a degree. There's like a quid pro quo between game companies and retailers. Now even more focused on pre-order bonuses or early access to some aspect of the game.
Well, pre-orders had to change because, you know, historically, you know, it was the false scarcity of making sure your store had a copy, but a physical copy. But now with digital downloads, there is less of a need for that. There's obviously going to be some people that don't have a good internet connection. They can't download these 100 gigs. Bloody hell.
100 gig games,
100 gig games.
And if you think about it, every kind of reason that we're told to pre-order or encouraged to pre-order is kind of bullshit. And I think of them as like, at best, they're kind of rubbish. At worst, they're like anti-consumer. It's like if a debut trailer or a gameplay video comes out for any game, it usually ends with pre-order now. And that is basically monetizing your interest and your hype around a game, right? And we see something, it looks cool, and you think I'm interested, and then we've been trained to express that interest by putting money down. So a lot of, if we're being honest, a lot of us define ourselves by our interests, right?
You're literally wearing a Demolition Man shirt and a Metal Gear jacket.
Listen, I like Simon Phoenix and Snake. So to a degree, like, we almost have this conditioning to pre-order stuff because if we feel like it's important to us, let's pay the money to it. But like the business and like the transactional reasons are like more obvious, right? Like,
games are expensive as hell to make. So yeah, obviously we're coming at it from the pre-ordering is maybe not good all the time, but there are legitimate business cases for it. Video games, especially in the last 20 years, have become just they
astronomically
expensive to make. And you know, obviously don't want to think that we're calling out just the AAA here. It's very important for indies too.
Pre-order bonuses, like the knickknacks you get, almost never worth it. Like, very
Are you saying that 6 of Gollum's best phrases and poses? By the way, I have that game and I have that edition. He has one phrase that he says, which is "my precious," and I actually think there are only 4 emotes, really. Or maybe 5. All of them involve him
chasing a fly?
Chasing a fly.
Resident Evil 4 Remake, for example, there's an attaché case that will increase the drop rate of gunpowder so you can make ammo. There are people out there who would genuinely benefit from having that, and it's a good gameplay consideration for people who might not be as skilled or you know, might not want to feel the constant grind of almost being out of ammo. The fact that they created that means that Capcom saw a use for it. But then they did the bullshit thing of making you pay for it, which is extremely, I think, like anti-consumer. Usually that shit just gets added to the game for you to buy, or it's for free. Like,
or in a Game of the Year version of the game.
Or the Mass Effect costumes eventually were just in the game, right? Like, you could just buy that stuff on the Cerberus network. And then the other thing is the betas. I think this is the worst part of it. Like, paying money to get access to a beta is crazy. You are paying someone to do testing for them or provide some sort of telemetry for them, right? They're taking data away from you playing the game and using it to change the game or like help them understand where their game is at. But that is something that a tester gets paid for or should be getting paid for. But in this scenario, you're paying them to play the game that isn't out so then you can give them data to help them make the game. That's crazy. Like, that's wild. In these scenarios where I've pre-ordered and like I'm suddenly learning Denovos in Street Fighter 6, how likely is it that you're going to go back and cancel that pre-order? And how likely is it that that process is easy? Right now, games are too unpredictable in how they'll launch, when they'll launch, and what the state of them will be in launch, at launch, and whether they're going to be feature complete at launch, for us to be happily paying money up front before we know the full story. And obviously, as someone who does reviews, I'm going to evangelize the fact that you should pay attention to reviewers. Like, the pre-order system also kind of allows developers and publishers to sidestep like critiques and analysis in a big way. Like, we naturally have a confirmation bias, especially when you put money down for something. If I pay money for something, I don't want to then contend with the fact that I made a mistake because this thing is shit.
So Tam, what can we do?
the most important thing I would say of all this in terms of like purpose is, I hope you would agree, I think you would agree, is messaging the data and providing insight into how popular or how much interest there is going to be around a game, right? Wishlist it.
I love a wish list.
Yeah.
Wishlisting reminds me, especially because there are so many indie games that I'm always interested in.
Yeah, and indie developers have been very open with like when you see our indie game and you think that you're interested in it, wishlist it on Steam. Core part of Steam. They're on PlayStation, they're on Xbox. We check to make sure, and they are available. I think the Xbox One is only available either on console or on browser. You can't do it through the app, mainly
PlayStation you can't do that.
Yeah, you can do it PlayStation on the app. But like that's a very easy way to get the most important aspect or the most important use out of pre-ordering or signaling your interest, right?
If you're interested in a game, post about it. That's another metric to show interest. And like, I don't know, watch trailers.
Posting about it, tweeting about it, whatever. It's as valuable a metric of interest as pretty much anything else out there. And
it's not cold hard cash, is it?
It's not cold hard cash. And that's the situation that we want to avoid. We want to avoid a situation where you're committed to something before you really know the full story around it. And that is why I think we should stop pre-ordering, or at least really think about if you should be pre-ordering this game and why you're pre-ordering it. Because if it's just, I like it and I hope that it's good, you could probably just wait, and not do that. And if it's because, I want to show my interest in it, you've got plenty of options to do it without spending money.
Thanks again for watching, everyone. Let us know your thoughts on pre-ordering games in the comments below. Like I mentioned last week, but now the event is upon us. DreamHack Dallas is happening this week, and there's a whole lot of fun things going on, including fighting games, voice actors, D&D,
cosplay,
games, cosplay, and so much more to bring the gaming community to life. Use code DREAMBIG to save 20% if you're interested in going.
Yeah, we're going to be co-streaming it, and if you want to get a discount if you're going, there you have it.
There you have it. You can find me on Twitter at LucyJamesGames.
I'm at TamorH.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
We need like a
sign off?
spot on. No, we need like a spot on. Some kind of...
Okay, thing there.